Hello everyone, today I'll be showing you how I made Cybernetics come to life. I'll be first talking about the first scene in the film. Quick side note, I'll be talking more often in the beginning of the video, but as the video goes on, I don't want to repeat myself, so I'll just add a quick text box to explain certain parts of the film. In this scene, I used a street light in order to brighten up the scene at night. So when it's nighttime, the scene looks a lot nicer when there's a street light on top of it. Just to show an example, this is with the street light, and this is without the street light. As you can see, the scene is way darker, which would make the character a lot harder to see. And I had to add some sort of light, so I decided to just add a floating street light on top of the scene, and it worked out pretty well. Although you could see the light a little bit in the film, I think I cut it off the screen enough where you just don't notice it or you think it's hanging from something. In this film, pretty often I use task sequences in order to allow the characters to walk on their own or to play animations on time. So for example, for the main character in the beginning of the film, I basically made her run from one position to the other, and then as soon as she got to the end of that position, she would play an animation in order to time these animations properly and make it look very dynamic. So for example, when she's running, her route sequence is 13 seconds long. So I basically timed it where as soon as she gets to her position, she plays an animation. And this is one of the best ways to kind of make a bit more complicated, more complex scenes. I also use teleport to position very often in order to allow the character to go back to its original position so I can do retakes as much as I want. If something happens, for example, if the character ragdolls, all I have to do is re-enable the task sequence and it starts over again. And that's a really great way to just do as many shots as possible and not having to worry about, repositioning the character or anything. Just adding teleport to position is very helpful and saves a lot of time. When I was actually recording this, I was just in the helicopter with menu open, and when I was ready, I just pressed start task sequence, started recording, and I just waited for her to run towards me. And as soon as she dove, I rose up from my hiding position and I just surveyed the area with the light attached to the helicopter. If you want to know how I actually created those lights on the helicopter, it's a bit of a weird process. At first I thought a spotlight mod would work, but unfortunately Rockstar Editor does not actually load up the spotlights for some reason. So what I had to do was basically use Scene Director and the Scene Director lights. And then I opened menu and I attached those Scene Director lights onto the helicopter. This is definitely one way you can do a spotlight for a helicopter. It's kind of limited in terms of like how far it can project the light. It can work if it's pretty close up, like I did in my scene. I attached the light in this example on the door. I recommend not attaching it to the door because sometimes if you do that and you open the door, the light's gonna move, but as long as you close the door, it's fine. One issue I found with this technique is that the lights aren't very powerful, especially only if you use one light. So what I had to do was go back into menu, copy the lights a couple times, and it should copy with attachments already. I just did copy with attachments, you can select that in menu, and it was a lot better. My lights positioning probably wasn't the best, but if you ever try and do this yourself, you can definitely fix it. There might also be better ways to do spotlights. I just couldn't figure out any other way, so I just decided to do it this way. This scene revolved heavily around task sequences and animations in order to make it look like a lively and dynamic street. The drunk guy and the dog all have set routes to walk from one position to the other. The guy walking towards the cop also has a set route and animation, timed with the cop's animation in order to make it look like he got headbutted. And this is all done so I can do as many retakes as I want, because like I said before, I use teleport to position for all my task sequences. Animations are also timed here with task sequences. If the guy's route is 15 seconds, then as soon as his route ends, the following animation plays. The cop has a sequence called nothing being used. It would also be set up at 15 seconds, so when the guy walks up to him, he will play the headbutt animation succinctly with the guy falling down. When it comes to her getting kidnapped, all I did was use a synchronized animation in Scene Director, and that's pretty easy to find. You just gotta go through aggressive interaction or something like that, and you can select the kidnap animation, and then as long as you have your actors incorporated into Scene Director, you're good to go. Here's some footage on Rockstar Editor showing how I do smooth camera movement. When the camera has to move faster, the camera has to be placed more ahead of the subject. If I didn't do that, the camera would have been moving too slowly and the character would have been slightly off the screen. And this is all due to smooth blending not catching up to the keyframe position you actually place in the scene. Here's the location I made for the section of the film where the masked man modified the main character. This was all built through the object spooner and menu, and it was also built inside a Los Santos custom since it fit the aesthetic of an underground operation. These weird walls that I placed here were used to help guide the direction of the medical bed, which you saw in the film where the scientist was pushing it towards the main character. Here's some footage showing how I set up the scene. After finding the proper values, I attached the scientist to the bed and added a push animation. If you don't create proper walls, you're most likely going to experience clipping like I did. To get his welding mask to open and close, I had to combine animations and time opacity changes so it would switch to a welding mask in a different position. Here are some of the task sequences I used for one of the welding masks. As you can see, there are two welding masks. One will disappear and the other will appear when the animation plays. When he drinks from the whiskey bottle, I use a scene director synchronized animation. Once I found the correct animation, I aligned it with the clone bottle on the table. When I was ready, I deleted the clone bottle of whiskey, but I recommend just lowering the opacity so when he's done drinking, you can upper the opacity again so then the consistency still remains that the bottle is on the table. If you want to know how I made the cop cars follow each other, here's some quick footage showing how I did it. In this scene I was controlling the main character, but I set task sequences so she would play animations at the correct time. I really wanted to enhance the lighting in this scene, so I decided to add some streetlights behind these fences. Two shots are blended here. Since you can't roll without a gun in your hand, I manually made her roll through task sequences. Then I blended another shot of me rolling with the gun out. This was probably one of the most complicated scenes in the entire film. I had to use a lot of task sequences in order to make the SWAT team leave the vehicle and fluidly walk into the alleyway with their guns out. I made all the SWAT members aim at the box pile, so when they exited their vehicles they would have their weapons equipped. You can't set it where they aim and walk at the same time, so I had to use upper body aiming animation while they were walking. I just want to say thank you for everyone who watched and supported the film, and I also want to say thank you to the scene director community and Wanoa for making really awesome tutorials that really helped me make this project come to life. This is the first commentary I've ever done on this channel, so I know it was a bit rough, but I'm hoping that this video helped you out in some way. Thank you for watching.